Hey, everybody, welcome back. Of course, there's a new Fantastic Four movie coming out, and we just did a really tremendous stream on Roger Corman a few weeks back. So this episode, I think, is kind of fortuitous, and we decided today we would talk about the original 1994 unreleased Fantastic Four film, an early effort from some of the people that would make huge strides in the later half of the decade in the early 2000s, like Avi Arad, in bringing Marvel to the big screen. But this was a mishap. Something went wrong. And we're going to talk about that today. As well as, most importantly, whether or not this often spoken about in hushed tones film filled with lots of lore, very difficult to see, is any good. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, George. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm excited.
Causing any more controversy lately?
I hope so. It gets brings views into lots of comments on my controversial video I did about grifters online. This is not a grifting podcast, though. We're not going to talk about this movie to like rag on it or get clicks. This is appreciators only zone, and I think I'm in good company. Am I right? Are you a fellow appreciator of Oli Sassoon's 1990s Fantastic Four effort?
I would say yes and no. I would say that every fiber of my being wants me to just love this movie. I think the major hindrance is that the quality. I mean the picture quality is so bad from the available sources that it does hinder the experience overall. Because I think there would be so much more to talk about in terms of appreciation of the craft that went into the movie, and I really felt a little differently, and maybe I was taken in by the propaganda from the Doomed documentary afterwards, but I kind of felt bad for the movie afterwards, that I should respect it perhaps a little bit more than it deserves because of how much effort they actually tried to put into it rather than what is actually expressed on screen. So I would say yes, overall, yes, and it's not without its problems.
Can you explain to the people what this is? What are we talking about?
Well, I think this is the best terminology that I found for this is described as an ashcan film, which is a terminology that's usually used for comic books. And what that means is that it is a work that is produced solely to maintain a copyright hold on a franchise. So this was done back even in the golden age of comic books. Famously, Fawcett Comics, who made Captain Marvel, created a ashcan version of Wiz Comics to maintain the copyright before the actual publication of the book. And it's done in movies very rarely, but this is probably the most famous example. So to circle back, what this means is that there was a German film producer named Bernd Eichinger who somehow managed to wrangle the film rights for the Fantastic Four from Marvel, I believe in the 80s.
Which wouldn't have been tough because they were selling the rights left and right to bail themselves out of the hole they were in, correct?
Exactly. He probably sweet-talked Stan Lee into saying, he had the goods to make a $30 million Fantastic Four movie. And he says, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. So this guy held on to the rights for almost 10 years. And it sounds like the 10-year option is when the deal is about to expire. So he starts basically either you use it or lose it. So he did not have the money to make this movie. It was really estimated that it would take $30 million. And so rather than losing the property outright, when he knew that there was potentially some way he would get a deal later on with 20th Century Fox, he convinced Roger Corman, the king of low-budget exploitation films, to give him $1 million and to produce this movie. And from every other source that's out there, everyone else was unaware that this was the plan. The plan from everyone else's perspective was that this was going to be a real movie that would be released to the public. But through other machinations that occurred afterwards, it was basically shelved and or destroyed.
That would be a real shame if it was destroyed. So basically this movie, in my opinion, it's obviously very difficult to actually sit down and enjoy it. But I think from my perspective, you could hunt around a lot for a copy of this film And for a long time, it was available sort of on the comic book trading floor market, where you could buy a VHS copy right alongside the Star Wars Holiday Special and other, forgotten gems or buried gems. I don't know if that's a gem, is up for debate. And and now with the magic of the internet, we can kind of see it. I think both watched a version that's available on the Internet Archive, which was superior than whatever you found on YouTube, correct?
Yeah, the YouTube version is actually abysmal. It's way worse than the Internet Archive version, and it has, I believe, French subtitles on it too. So
Yeah, yeah. Ryan alluded to the fact that it might have been destroyed. Avi Arad claimed that he burned the negative, right?
I
And
wouldn't put it past. I would not put it past him.
if that were to be the case, that'd be very upsetting. So we also, in conjunction with discussing this movie, watched the very interesting documentary Doomed, in which the cast and some of the crew are reunited for a documentary in which they discuss the process of making this thing. And they're able to use snippets of the film in the context of that documentary, and those look much better.
Yes.
They look like a very high quality VHS copy. I wish.
Well, because remember, the copy that we're seeing has been, VHS'd into oblivion. So it's been copied and copied and copied over and over, and he degrades every single time after that. So, I mean, that's how I first encountered it, as like you described, at a convention scene where it's on the table with many other weird unreleased or television movie adaptations of comics that you're like completely astonished that even exist, like the Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. with David Hasselhoff, or the Doctor Strange TV movie, all things like that.
Something interesting, I was going to talk about the cast. So this movie really has no notable cast members or notable crew necessarily. But
yeah, they're kind of like people that you see it and you're like, oh, I sort of have heard that name, or maybe I've seen them in this, but no, again, no marquee people at all.
And it was directed by a guy named Oli Sassone, who then went on to do a lot more films for Roger Corman. And but I will say this, I think the cast acquits themselves nicely. And I just wanted to bring this up real quick, and then we'll get into talking about the movie. You mentioned a film like Doctor Strange TV. Alex Hyde White, who played Mr. Fantastic in the film, in this version, his second acting gig of all time. Do you know what it was?
Oh, yes.
Captain America role in Captain America 2, Death Too Soon.
My favorite.
With who? Miguel.
Christopher Lee as Miguel, the master of disguise.
The master of disguise. Okay, anyway. Ryan, you're a Fantastic Four fan. You're a comic book fan. What did you think of this movie?
So like I said, it is a mixed bag overall. And I feel like, yes, I did enjoy it, but there are a lot of problems. And like I was saying, I think if we could actually see the movie properly,
right,
it would change the experience entirely and be a much more fun, engaging, kind of like magical experience, because then you would see it in all its glory. Because for a movie like this, that any of these Roger Corman movies that are very low budget, done on, shoestring, kind of the appreciation and enjoyment factor comes from kind of examining it on that level, on a technical level, and seeing how things were made and how they're doing this. And you can appreciate, like, oh, that's a really nice set for what they came up with here, or these costumes are nice. This, you can't, everything is obscured by the bad picture quality. So you have to take that into account. And that does hinder the experience, I would say. But overall, let's start with the good. The casting is excellent. The casting is spot on. I mean, these 100%. Actors were just ripe for the picking. They look like they literally came off the panel from a Fantastic Four comic book. So that's a huge plus right there. Two, especially Doctor Doom and the Thing, their costumes they're way beyond the level that you would expect for a movie like this. And they show what the potential, if just a little bit more money had been spent, or a little bit more care from the producing side had been applied, this would have been a really good, if not decent, movie. Okay. So I'll say those are the great things. The bad things, I think the script is ultimately a huge letdown. And I think that if I'm able to forgive poor special effects that are constrained by a budget and or the time in which they were created. But I think having a script that actually has something to say or something to do with the characters can make up for that. And here it is rather basic and uninteresting. And that's my complaint about the movie.
Okay, that's interesting. I had a different perspective on the script from you because I take into consideration the idea that the person writing the script had to know the budget constraints. And the really amazing thing to me about this is that you had a group of people who were making this movie who actually did strive to make a very faithful Fantastic Four movie visually and I think tonally, which they strike perfectly.
Yes.
And I completely enjoyed it. I don't see that there were any story beats here that were skipped in something like the 2005 version. I mean, it's basically one for the most part with and
And it's
worse.
actually a little bit better in terms
And
of
it's way better.
accuracy. Yes.
So I will tell you this. I was impressed. This is a movie that's an hour and a half long. The plot premises is essentially this. We're introduced to Reed Richards in college, where he's a big smart brainiac, and he has a friend, Victor Von Doom. And they try to make a thing that's going to shoots lightning into the air. And I was very impressed with their laboratory set and the giant gizmo that they had set up for them. Now, this is a movie where we don't see the Fantastic Four in costume and in action until about what?
15
Probably
minutes before the end of the movie.
yeah, I'll give them a
If
little
even.
credit. It's like 50 minutes in. Now, I was astounded.
No. They do not wear the costumes, and everyone wear the costume until the last 15 minutes when they storm Doom's Citadel.
Okay.
Sue Storm wears the costume earlier than that.
Okay. Well, I will say that also the Fantastic Four didn't wear their costume until issue 3 of the comic book as well. So I think maybe they're a little closer to the original vision of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby than perhaps you.
Sure.
But anyway, I was astounded at how much they were able to jam into this. And I thought the script was very economical because obviously you can't make a fucking Fantastic Four movie that's 2.5 hours long with an hour of them in their costumes running around doing fights. So they had to stretch it out, and they stretch it out by giving us Doom's origin story at the beginning. And they also introduce us to the relationship between Ben, Sue, Reed, and Johnny, right? And, this has always been a problem in the comics. How do you get all these 4 disparate goofballs into space? Reed's going to space? Fine. That makes sense. He's a scientist. Why the hell Ben coming with him? Okay. In the comic books, the explanation was that they were old war buddies, correct? And he was always
he's one of the best pilots too.
He's a pilot. That's also correct.
Now, I don't recall why Sue and Johnny, I believe Sue was just because it was his wife or whatever. She went along.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. And I think Johnny was the backup pilot. Is that not correct? I don't recall exactly.
Okay. None of that is spelled out in the first issue. I read the first 5 issues of the comic yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And I hadn't read them in a long time, but the first one offers almost zero explanation for why any of this occurs, including the idea that they have to go into space right now. We got to break in and go into the spaceship. They just kind of say, they literally say there's a line that we have to do it tonight or the commies will beat us to space.
Yeah. It was a space race thing where they had to beat the Russians into space. Yes.
Can't do that. And also I always thought a good out because there's been a lot of retroactive continuity on this to sort of spell out the idea of why they went. I think that in later iterations, Sue is a scientist also, which I think makes a little more sense.
You have to. There's no justification otherwise,
Yeah, exactly. And in the movie, it's probably the worst handled element of the plot because, what the story is that Reed and Ben live at a boarding house while they're in college, and Sue is a little girl. And then fast forward 10 years, then they come back to ask them to go to space.
Mrs. Storm, can Sue and Johnny come to space with us?
I got what they were going for there.
Yeah.
But that was a big old
cringe. Also, even more was look at you. The Fantastic Four.
That was brutal. From Mrs. Storm at the baked goods pie, sunlight window boarding house. And but then what happens is Susan Storm, who's played by future soap opera actress, what's her name? Rebecca Stabb. Stabbed me right in the heart because she is such a cutie in this movie, right?
Yeah.
She comes down the stairs and Reed's like, whoa. And then they go into space. And I thought for the most part, dude, I was just thinking about all the things that they jammed into this for $1 million. It's pretty impressive.
It is. It is. I agree with you. I think the space scenes actually at the beginning of the movie are better than a lot of the other scenes. I think it's where it drags in the middle is where I have a problem. And it just kind of slows down, kind of the stuff with the mole man jeweler guy kind of goes a little bit too much. And I'm like, can we spend more time with Dr. Doom perhaps? Because this is a much more interesting performance in my opinion.
That's what I appreciated on the movie's level, is that like they were able to make a fairly true, faithful Fantastic Four movie while leaning on elements from the comics that were complementary to Roger Corman's shtick, the things that he could do well. So,
Yeah.
Mole Man, you mean like the subterranean guy in the sewer, and he's like a weird, creepy leprechaun style dude? We could do that. We did that 2 weeks ago on whatever movie, Carnosaur 5, right? Oh, you know what I'm saying? So the shoehorning in of the Mole Man character, who, by the way, they had to rename the Jeweler because I guess they didn't have the rights to the Mole Man.
They
That was
were unsure. They were unsure,
coveted.
according to the documentary, because it wasn't explicitly stated in the deal which characters were included, so they didn't want to take a chance.
Imagine going to court as like the plaintiff and being like, they stole Mole Man,
Mole
which
Man.
I own Mole Man, the memorable character of Mole Man. But
that
anyway,
always reminds me of the thing when they used to write the news articles after Disney acquired Marvel, and they're like, "We've just bought 9,000 characters," and they're like, "Okay, what are you going to make the Aunt May movie?" It's like, which characters are actually of value here?
Exactly. Mole Man, though, perhaps could be of value to some.
Mole Man is actually a good villain when done properly, and he's really important to the classic Silver Age Fantastic Four stories. That's first issue there.
Here's the first villain. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? The way that he was jammed in, it reminded me a lot of, and the way that a lot of things are jammed into this movie, and we move from one extreme to the next. And it reminded me a lot of reading one of Stan and Jack's early comics. I mean, I was rereading the first appearance of Dr. Doom, which I didn't have much of a memory about. I knew that they met him and he kidnapped him and they went to their castle or whatever. But I forgot that a large chunk of that story was Dr. Doom kidnapping them because he wanted them to go back in time to steal Blackbeard's treasure.
Yep.
So Reed, Thing, and Torch have to dress up as pirates and steal the you know what I mean? So Stan was always jamming like three different things into one, or Jack, whoever you want to attribute that to, into a comic, right? So I was like, okay, we're a little bit familiar territory here. Go ahead.
I'm surprised they didn't do that for the movie, because that actually probably would have been cheaper than doing all this.
It'd be like Turtles in Time.
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles 3, right?
Yeah.
No, absolutely. That would kind of have been fun. But, I found myself really enjoying it. I thought there were moments where, whenever you're watching these low budget movies and things don't exactly go off, if you know enough about how this works, you know what they're going for.
Yeah.
So like the whole bit where after they crash land and they go and they're being tested by the laboratory doctor, and he's making little comedic asides about all of their powers in his quest to draw their blood, which is difficult because one of them's invisible, one's a giant rock, and one catch on fire. It didn't exactly land, but I know what they're going for. And that's my experience in watching this. And so I found it to be a lively, fun, little entertaining picture.
Although the scene after that, I believe it's immediately after that, was much more comedic for my money about, I don't know if it was intended to or not, when that said same doctor is now reporting back to Dr. Doom about what he found out. And then Dr. Doom just starts caressing the guy's face with his glove. And he's like strangling him a little bit, like in a playful way. And it's like, this is really weird. I don't know if they're intentionally going for some kind of comedic thing, or if this is meant to be intimidating and scary or what, but I was kind of laughing at that.
Well, I think what they were going for was like a Roy Batty, Eldon Tyrell kind of thing, right? Where he jams his fingers into his eyes. So maybe that you were supposed to, use your metadata from other movies to sort of like fill in the blanks on that one and insert for fear, but you didn't experience that.
I did not think it was scary at all. I thought it was actually kind of funny. Sorry.
Well, the other tough part too is that the guy playing Dr. Doom, they didn't dub over his mask, so he's just like, oh yes, fuck the Fantastic Four. Yes, I will find them. And
yeah,
they even skipped an opportunity to dub the guy. They dubbed Thing. Go ahead.
Well, they didn't have the money or the time after. By the time that they were actually going to do it, it was done. They weren't interested in making any more additions or corrections to the film. So that's why that. But I do want to comment about the guy that does play Dr. Doom, Joseph Culp, who's the son of Robert Culp from I Spy. He's excellent in the movie. This is one of the best Dr. Doom portrayals. I mean, it is the best Dr. Doom live action portrayal, because comparing it to the 2005 Julian McMahon version, which, even though I'm a fan of that actor, that is not Dr. Doom. And then the 2015 Josh Trank one, I don't even remember. He was like some techno hacker or something like that. Yeah. So this is like very classic. I mean, the costume is spot on. It is. I mean, I really dig that costume a lot. It's spectacular. And then they actually go through the bother, unlike any other adaptation in live action, of showing the true origin of Doctor Doom, which is that showing him and Reed as, like you said, as university students together. So there is that history and connection there, rather than in the 2005 one where they're just like on the board together or something like that. I don't remember, but they're kind of friends / rivals. They have an accident, although they don't really play up the fact that Doom blames Reed for the accident, even though it's his own fault. I mean, they kind of hint a little bit at it, but
they try to use it as a justification at the end, but they didn't play it off well enough in the beginning for it to land.
And then they do show him as, they don't explicitly state him as the monarch of Latveria, I don't believe, but he has all these Latverian kind of goon squad that attend to him and take care of him after the accident. They, escort him away under the cover of darkness, that pretend that he's dead. And then he has a castle, so I don't know where that came from, and otherwise that he's a monarch.
I mean, that's why I've always liked the idea of Reed referencing to his past and knowing Dr. Doom as a real man, but I've never liked seeing his face, which Stan and Jack never showed. They always strayed away from him. He was always in silhouette. I've never liked this idea in the films, and it was also in the 2004 version, where we see Dr. Doom as hey, I'm Dr. Doom. I'm a normal guy, Victor Von Doom. And then all of a sudden he gets like his face blown up, and then now he's wearing a crazy
The actor
suit.
wants to be seen on screen.
I know that, but that's just unfortunate. I think Dr. Doom should be more mysterious. I never liked. Now, in this one, I gave it a pass because you have to have you got to add some drama and filler. And by the way, I did appreciate that they didn't get dressed up in their costumes till the very end, because for me, Fantastic Four has always been like a character-driven science fiction concept. So the fact that they withhold the superhero suits and they're trying to give you something that's going to keep you entertained, without it being superheroes. So like you have a lot of great set pieces. You have an experiment gone wrong. You have a trip to space and a crash landing. And I know that's all going to be skipped over because people, studios now will say, no one wants to see that shit anymore. They've already seen it. So we'll just, we'll skip forward ahead. I guarantee this new movie will do that. Right. But
I don't want to see the origin again in the new movie. I mean,
but it's never been done right. And it could be mined for a lot of drama.
Yeah. My problem is always when you have to start at the origin, then we constantly then have to see every detail every excruciating detail after that. How did they form the team, and how did they get the Baxter building, and how did they, set up their bank account and their business? I don't care. I want to see them tackle a actual cosmic threat and not have to deal with all the minutia that came before. So you can do that in a comic book, that's fine. But in a movie where, we need to see something different, for instance, in the new movie, which hopefully we are going to see with a true, true to comic accurate Galactus. I mean, as we're supposedly promised. So we'll see. I don't have a problem with anything else that you said, by the way. I don't have a major problem that they withheld the costumes for the last 15 minutes. I'm just pointing that out, that did occur and that's how it happened. But I do take issue with what you said, is that Fantastic Four is a character-driven drama, science fiction drama, and I agree. I don't think that that's evident in this film. I don't think that the characters are fleshed out to any degree that can make up for the kind of bare bones story, which I'm fine with too. I'm fine with having like a plot that is basically like mad villain wants to blow up the city. Like I'm totally fine with that. But you have to then add something else, meaning the characters have to be kind of more than two-dimensional, and or the dialogue needs to have some kind of flair to it. And that is where it's very lacking in this movie.
It did not have, there are no flair in the dialogue, but you did have something
any
extra.
Character can say any line of dialogue and interchange it, and that's the problem. And it's interesting because then on Internet Archive they have the 67 Fantastic Four Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and I was like, oh, let me watch the Galactus episode again because it's been a while. And then as soon as that episode begins, the Thing starts talking, and it's a specific cadence of dialogue that you would only hear from the Thing. And it's so that show was written as a accurate representation of what the true characters sound like, and that's what I'm talking about is missing from this movie.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from. However, I think that the actors are strong enough that they make it work. And you know what? I'm sure that you would have. I think that.
How about Alicia Masters? Oh no! I dropped my vase and It's ruined.
Okay. I was going to say you were asking for a little something extra, and you got it in the form of the jeweler, who we spend entirely too much time with. As he
Yes.
kidnaps Alicia. Like, they just crash landed, and they've got these spectacular powers, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then cut to the jeweler. I'm going to kidnap Alicia Masters, and she's going to be the queen of my underground trash pile. I'm like, what? And I'm like, I don't care. How's this going to fit into the, what do you, and I'm looking at the timer. I'm like, there's like 45 minutes left in this fucking movie. What are we doing here?
Got to have that filler.
Truly. But it was, and then also the thing about this, and I don't know if this is a problem of the VHS copy being so bad. Did you find at times you were confused about where they were? I thought that at certain
Not particularly. No, I don't think so.
Maybe I wasn't watching closely enough, but like they would be in an underground area fighting Jeweler, and then Dr. Doom would show up. And then
Dr. Doom did show up at the jeweler's lair because he wanted that special crystal. That
and then they fight him, and they fight Dr. Doom a little bit at the jeweler's cave, and then they go back to the Baxter Building.
Yes,
and there's a decent little model Fantastic car that flies.
That was
the Baxter Building. Yeah, it's well done. And then they go back to Doom's castle, where they have it out with, look, we can't afford Doombots, but we do have a lot of guys wearing green capes.
That's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with the special effects. That, as primitive as they are, it looks like basically like cell animation. I don't know what they were using for the Fantastic Car, and later the Human Torch fighting the giant laser or whatever. But I can buy into all that. That's fine.
Yeah, I thought that every time they did powers, I was impressed that Sue Storm got to do her force field.
Yes,
I didn't think they would give her that. And then, obviously, Mr. Fantastic he's limited to basically leg and arm stretching.
Yeah.
Because, the guy's not going to turn into a parachute or something. How are we going to do that? Right.
No.
The Thing is the guy that by far gets the most action moments because it's just a big dude in a suit, albeit a good suit with a nice animatronic face. So he can say it's clobbering time twice.
Oh yeah. The suit is exquisite. And honestly, I don't know if you would agree. I think it looks better than the Michael Chiklis version from the 2005 film.
I wouldn't go that
comic.
Far.
Come on. That looks way cooler. That looks way cooler than the Michael Chiklis outfit.
I think that there's something about what you're saying. I think that it's maybe it's a difference in preference for design, but I think that his costume, the Thing in this film, he looked a little bit too much like Enemy Mine or like a kind of a dinosaur style like alien.
I felt it looked more like a Kirby drawing to me than the other film version.
He looks more like the original like first few issue Kirby drawings before the sort of big eyebrow was innovated.
And it's very expressive too, which is quite remarkable. And that's what I really found captivating about it, is that the expressions of the emotions are able to be captured to a certain degree.
I get your point there. And I thought that there were a few clever things with Mr. Fantastic. I thought when he stretched his arm, it looked fairly good. I just want to reiterate again. I think that a modern viewing, this is the most comic accurate Sue Storm we've
How about in the limo at the end of the movie with
the big wavy hand? That was good.
It's the most comic accurate Fantastic Four movie. No, not the big wavy hand, but the rest of them, the entire movie. Yeah. I mean, I have problems with the movie, but yeah, it's definitely way more accurate than the 2005 movie, or certainly
it feels much
one.
I mean, I think that she's a very comic accurate Sue Storm because she is so like docile, I guess. But I'm sure the character has been updated somewhat to reflect our modern thinking. But if you read the early Kirby Fantastic Four, it's very much Stu is always the damsel in distress. She's deferential to Reed in all cases, and just sort of this like cute, bright-eyed little girl who can go invisible. And this Rebecca Stabb did an incredible job. She got a cute little haircut too. She's really quite gorgeous. But I thought
the movie's credit, though, they do not place Sue Storm as the damsel in distress in this movie, though. That is left to Alicia. So it is important because she is a heroic character. She should not be just placed as the damsel in distress. I don't think she should be the team leader, as it is implied in the new movie. We will wait and reserve judgment until we see it. But that's my thoughts on that.
Well, you want to make me look out to be like the sexist here. Like, I'm just saying,
Just saying.
But No, I found it to be. I thought the kid that played Johnny was great. He had like a lot of youthful exuberance. He had that swooped blonde hair. It was a lot of fun. Now, here's the big question I have for you on this. When you watch the Doom documentary and they talk to all the long suffering actors and crew of this movie, the one big takeaway seems to have been, and their biggest regret is that maybe this movie, had it come out, it might have catapulted us all to a different level in our career. We could have said that we made this movie. Implied in that is they're thinking that perhaps it would have found an audience or made some money or been a relatively modest hit. Now, do you believe had this film been released in the theaters or on VHS that it would have been a hit?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Given the landscape at the time and other much, much better movies that we have discussed in a recent show, the Pulp superhero show, for instance, those movies are all, vastly superior, just not only on a technical level, but also on a story level. And those did not capture or connect with audiences. So I don't really see how this would have either, especially how low budget it is.
I agree with you. I mean, it didn't do a whole lot for Matt Salinger's career to play Captain America in 1990. And would you say that these films are of comparable value?
Haven't seen that one. I don't think I've only seen the
either. I was hoping you.
One. No, sorry, I haven't seen that one. It's
Jesus, neither have I. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. These movies are maybe not worth exploring.
But I think you're right. I mean, they all speak of it very lovingly, and to a certain extent, I think there is a lot to love. But there's just not enough movie or story there that I think this would have it would have ever broken out to have been a popular film.
Well, that's why also I said I think I was a little bit brainwashed by the propaganda of that documentary, because they're all speaking with such earnestness and such fondness for that we were trying to make the best Fantastic Four movie ever, and it was taken away from us. And you're like, yeah, this was really good. Like, how dare they? And
good
then you're
you.
Like, well, the movie, like, if you went and sat down and watched the movie again, it'd probably be a little bit bored. But again, like I said, if there was a like pristine high def version of this movie, I think it would change the equation entirely.
And I'm shocked that there's not. I mean, do you think it's that honest that it was destroyed? I mean, I don't know why they would have to destroy it. I don't know everything about, copyright law, but I can't imagine that there's this loophole where if you want to keep hold of the rights, you just make something and then don't release it. That counts.
Yeah, because I believe he then sold, they did sign something with 20th Century Fox after that to have another deal started. But okay. I would not put it past. I mean, again, who owns the movie? Who actually owns the movie at this point? Did Avi Arad buy it himself? And then does he own it? Did it get co-opted by Disney, by Fox? I have no idea.
Right. Like if you put it out on DVD, would some lawyer, would some, Fourth Circuit judge in like Portland be like, oh, sorry, you lost the rights to the Fantastic Four because you released this movie from 1990. And, come on, like, what would happen?
And also, it's just a matter of the fact that Disney has no incentive to release this movie. They're not like other studios. Like if Warner Brothers, for instance, or Universal perhaps owned this movie, they would send it out through Warner Archive, or they distribute it to someone else, and they put it out through Kino Lorber Studio Classics, put a high def release out there, make some money, make some quick money, no loss. But Disney doesn't care about stuff like that. As we've seen, they don't really value the back catalog of anything, even if they do own it. To then put money into restoring it and distributing it, it's just not even worth it to them to even think about, in my opinion.
That's a real shame, because I can't think of any other comparable films to where they just won't release them. I can't think of anything.
Well, the Looney Tunes movie that was the Coyote versus Acme, which is apparently going to be released now finally. But those two Looney Tunes movies that were made in the last couple of years, those were destined to be in the same category. Right. But Day the Earth Blew Up finally did get a release, and Coyote versus Acme is maybe with a Batgirl. Batgirl would be the comparable example if that ever sees the light of day.
I was thinking. But that was for tax write-off purposes. And that's just insane that they made that Batgirl movie with Michael Keaton in it and then shelved it.
Hey, that's the same concept, more or less. I mean, this was not done for tax purposes, but it was meant to not stain the brand, which is ironic because the 2005 Fantastic Four movie was not all that great. Yeah, it was like a minor hit, but it didn't do wonders for brand recognition or creating a long-lasting franchise. And then the 2015 movie was a huge failure.
Oh God, I almost even totally forgot that even happened.
Oh yeah, that was just a bizarre experience overall. And now we are. Do you notice? Isn't it weird though? The 10-year cycles of the Fantastic Four. We're talking about this movie was 1994, then 2005, 2015, and now 2025. Here we are again with another Fantastic Four movie. We're like just doomed to repeat this 10-year cycle.
Man,
pun intended.
Are they ever going to get it right? Trembling Colors says Dr. Doom was the best design. Still, wish they'd mic'd him though. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. It would have been a lot cooler had they done that. Also, the Dr. Doom, the one thing I really appreciated was they put that little Kirby piece in his mouth that looks like a razor or something. That's like a little tiny square in his mouth. I was like, oh, that's cool. But his cape, I couldn't get over his cape, bro. Give the guy a cape that actually looks like it weighs like something. This just looked like a little, Halloween costume.
I think it looked
night that I dressed up.
I think it looked totally fine. I was totally into Dr. Doom for this movie. Also, I just love any scene of him just sitting on the throne in a giant throne room, like where Ming the Merciless or Fu Manchu or whoever. It had a very pulpy kind of matinee, even Saturday morning in a good sense feel to it. And that's what I like about the potential of a movie like this, is that we had the intention or the potential to do something along the lines of that taken seriously, although they didn't maximize it to where it could be, actually good.
Right.
Yes. Bad guy layers are a lost art. I agree.
Bad guy layers. That's a great point. Yeah. We don't see many bad guy layers anymore.
That's always the fun in these types of movies, is you cut back to the villain scheming in their lair, talking to their henchmen, and they usually have the most, kind of decked out, elaborate setup going on. I mean, look at the pulp movies that we talked about when we talked in The Phantom. How about that? Cutting back to, I don't remember his name, Drax, I think. Cutting back to his lair where he's scheming. That's some of the most fun in the movie.
Lex Luthor.
Yeah, Vader. Or Lex Luthor in his underground subterranean lair, flirting with Miss Tessmacher. Those are the fun scenes. You got to have a good villain, and this movie does deliver that.
Well, do we have any? We'll take some questions from the chat. I guess I'm kind of exhausted on my thoughts on this movie, which is unfortunate.
I have some other things.
Well, also, by all means,
for Dr. Doom, I thought the best moment was when he does confront the jeweler, the mole man, and he pulls Alicia Masters out as a hostage, and he's like, "Don't come any closer, I'm killer." And he's like, "Go right ahead."
Yeah,
like, I don't care. I don't know who she is. Like, I couldn't care less. And then he rescues Alicia, and then when the Fantastic Four arrive, he grabs her and uses her as a hostage for himself. It's like that was probably one of the best moments for me.
That was cute. I was just astounded by the likeness of this guy, Joseph Hyde White, or Professor Hyde White, or whatever his name was, who who played Mr. Fantastic. He looked just like him. He sounded like him. He was earnest. That's one where I'll fight you on. You could interchange all the dialogue. I don't believe it. Though there was one moment in the movie that really rang sour to me. That was like, that's one I couldn't forgive, is this, after they crash land, all three of them emerge and they're like, the Thing, Human Torch, and Reed. And they're like, oh, can you believe it? We're alive. This is great. And I'm like, is anyone going to ask about Sue? They don't say shit. And then she just shows up and she's like, oh, I'm here. What? Oh, Sue, we can't see you. Right. But I thought that Reed would be like, where's Sue? Have a little like drama or something going on. Right. But instead it's just Johnny being like, oh yeah, we're live. And I'm like, dude, what the hell? Like, Sue is probably burnt to a crisp. Go dig for her body. I don't know. But I thought he was terrific as Mr. Fantastic. You know what? The guy that played him in the 2005 one wasn't so bad.
He was a little stiff. He was a little stiff.
Chris Evans is not good in that. And
Chris Evans is way overrated as the Human Torch. And it's just obnoxious, the performance. This is a much better, interpretation, for as little as the Human Torch actually does in this movie. It's kind of like a playful, jokey character, but not meant to be like so off-putting because they're like repulsive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the one thing you miss in the budget constraints. The idea that I always thought was fun was the Fantastic Four. In Marvel, they're always sort of unique as like a famous family who the public loves and adores. And you miss that in this film where uh, they can go out and sort of like introduce themselves to the world, which I always thought was a good element, no matter what movie it is, even the 2005. Muck Thader Ali says, "Hi, all. I'm a big fan of the channel." Well, thanks, man. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. That's
Thank
nice
you.
of you to say.
I also think for Human Torch, he should be the coolest character in the room, meaning like super cool guy. And like we were saying, the Chris Evans version was just like annoying. Get away from me.
Yeah,
Like,
annoying. Like, just like textbook. Oh, we have to have a cool character. Like, I think he's introduced in that movie by like making out with some girl on a motorcycle or something. Like,
yeah,
ooh, he's
like
wild and
frat boy,
crazy.
basically. Yeah, frat
Yeah,
boy, obnoxious level.
he's like an annoying frat boy in that. Like, and it's like dumb. You know,
And
it's just,
that's not what Johnny should be. No, I mean, it seems like, I mean, again, we're basing it off a trailer for the new movie, but the tone seems to be struck right, at least, you know,
for the new film.
for the new film. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing it. The thing I'm most excited about is the 1960s setting.
Yeah.
I really like that. Now, hearing that they're going to be in Avengers Doomsday or, you know, I'm like, oh no, they have to like travel forward in time and we have to do that. You know, are they going to have to come into the future? Like, I don't want them to do that. I want to be in the 60s. That's like way cool.
Well, hopefully they can do other, you know, movies, sequels out of sequence or whatever. Do you have any other fond memories of Fantastic Four comics? Did you read a lot or not? Or
yeah, I did. I had the Marvel Masterworks Fantastic Four Volume 1, and then I was also able to pick up, I remember this was very exciting for me. I was able to pick up the Strange Tales Human Torch Marvel Masterworks collection. You remember Strange Tales? So Human Torch became a very popular sort of teen character, almost like Spider-Man, and he was given his own comic book. Strange Tales, after the superheroes really hit hard, was repurposed from a magazine about Thum, the giant rock monster, into the stories of the Human Torch. And he had a lot of great little fun villains and lots of guest appearances. I remember my most favorite villain he fought was Paste Pot Pete. I always was like strangely interested in that character, how he just shot glue at everybody and they stuck to a wall.
Yeah.
But that was fun to get little side adventures of the Human Torch. And then I was always a big, you know,
wasn't there also the Asbestos Man, another Human Torch villain?
Wouldn't shock me, but I always liked the character of Johnny Storm. I remember being upset as a kid when he got hit over the head with a beer bottle during Civil War by an angry citizen, and he had to go to the hospital. Remember that in the Civil War comic?
Yeah, I try to block Civil War out of my memory. There,
you didn't like that?
Civil War, the comic is terrible.
Yeah, the comic. What are you talking about? You think it's terrible?
The ramifications of Civil War just ruined the Marvel universe, in my opinion. So no, I'm not a huge fan of that story. I think
you don't think it's good.
I think it wrecked a lot more than it actually helped.
Dude, okay. I don't know about you. That came out when I was in 8th grade, and I was super into it. And that whole summer, I was buying all the extension comics. I was pumped to find out what happened. That was a story that really had me hooked. I loved Civil War to this day. And
yeah, I read it when it came out. I was in high school and I enjoyed it at the time. But looking back, I mean, that was kind of like the end. They didn't understand how to pick up the pieces afterwards. And it felt very cold when, you know, Iron Man and Captain America, they're just supposed to be friends again. There's no real makeup that actually was meaningful. Or how do you come back from that? So,
well, I had a subscription to Captain America at the time. And of course, I was very upset when Captain America died. But, you know, Ed Brubaker, when he fake died, I think, but he died for like 3 years.
He got
dead
transported
for a while.
back in time, didn't he? With the magic bullet
that's
or
something like that. I don't remember exactly actually who even killed him or what happened to him. I kind of forgot. But like,
I think it was a brainwashed Sharon.
Oh yeah, Sharon? That's right. That's right. Yes, that's correct. Yes,
I almost said Sharon Tate. I'm sorry, Sharon Carter.
Dr. Kevorkian
tricked Sharon
Tate into killing. Yes, Dr. Faustus. Dr. Faustus into killing Captain America. She shot him on the courthouse steps. That's right. I forgot about that. I don't remember why he was traveling through time though. But I did like those comics where the focus shifted to Tony Stark Nick Fury, Sharon Stone,
Sharon
and
Carter.
Falcon and Winter Soldier for like a
Yeah.
year and a half. And I thought that story was cool. They were trying to figure out what happened to Captain America, because I always loved Captain America's villains. I always loved Red Skull and the Serpent Society and Sin and Crossbones and Dr. Faustus. I always thought those guys were great. And it's been a real shame that they never came together as a big coterie of evil in any of the films. That's been the sad thing for me. But we talked about that, I think, in our winter.
Fantastic Four villains, though, are also, I think, underrated. And most of the talk never goes beyond Doctor Doom or Galactus. And that's a shame, because there's a lot of other interesting villains in the Rogues Gallery. Talking about the Mad Thinker. Well, the Submariner, if you want to include him, yeah. Mole Man, Claw, the master of murderous master of sound, Blastar, the living bomb burst, Annihilus, they're both from the Negative Zone. Did I say the Mad Thinker already? The Red Ghost, that's another good one. You don't like any of these? You don't like any of these guys? Red Ghost and the amazing super apes that all have the same powers as the Fantastic Four.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
The Super Skrull.
Super Skrulls are great. This was a funny line. I was reading issue 2 where the Skrulls first appear, right? And at the end, they trick they send away the Skrull invasion, and all that remains are the 3 initial Skrulls that came down to Earth. And Reed Richards goes, "Well, we're gonna have to do something with you. I'm going to hypnotize you into thinking you're something else, and you're going to change." And he turns them into cows, right?
Yes.
But it was really hilarious. There were like 3 of these, like they're the most pathetic looking little creepy aliens you've ever seen. And one of them says, "Turn us into anything. We hate being Skrulls." It would be anything else. And then they hypnotizes them into thinking they're cows, and they're transformed into cows. I wonder if anyone's ever picked up that plot point and ran with it in previous iterations of the comic.
Not that I'm aware of. They did adapt that actually in the 60s cartoon version. That's the end of the Super Skrull episode. They have them transform into a cow. Yeah.
It's a clever ending, actually.
So from my own experience, my biggest time reading the new Fantastic Four was what you were describing a little bit during Civil War, the JMS, the J. Michael Straczynski run. That was probably when I started. And then I kept on after that. The best run, though, of the modern, kind of post that was the Jonathan Hickman run, where he kind of changed the game entirely with Fantastic Four. That's when Human Torch, they killed him. It was a stupid kind of thing. But what was interesting afterwards is that they put Spider-Man on the team, and they created the Future Foundation. They came out with cool new white futuristic outfits with a cool design, the 3 black like hexagons or whatever. And the story took on a, kind of vastly new, interesting avenues that had not been explored before. Now, I don't know what they're doing. I really couldn't care less what they're doing in modern comics, but that was a good time. That was when I was in college.
Okay, this is a great. Mark Millar brought the cows back. He made the cows get eaten at a fast food restaurant, and it made people crazy.
Oh, I bet.
That's funny. Sort of grim, but
what's also really cool are the 70s before. So obviously everyone loves the John Byrne run from the 80s, and of course,
I've read some of that. Yeah,
but the 70s kind of like lost in the wilderness kind of time for the Fantastic Four, when Stan and Jack had finished. They did like, I think, 102 issues from the beginning until then, and then it was just kind of rotating different writers of all the people the usual suspects of who you would expect, like Roy Thomas or Len Wein or Marv Wolfman. They all kind of came on, and those are some pretty wild, just random adventures. There's a great compilation which is like the Overthrow of Doom, where Doom changes the constitution of Latveria, that he has to abdicate the throne at a certain point for like political reasons. And so he decides, all of a sudden, I'm going to introduce my son, Victor von Doom II. And it turns out that it was actually just a clone of him that he's going to put as a fake person on the throne. It's just coming up with all these ridiculous stories, but they're fun to read.
That sounds really fun. I would be interested to read more Fantastic Four stuff, because I always liked the art in the 70s. And then also The Thing 2-in-1 was a fun comic that I had a few issues of as well. And then I wanted to show you this that I found at an old I found this in South Dakota at a comic book store. This is it's from Lancer Books. It's a republishing of a lot of Fantastic Four tales, and they're published like horizontally, if the audience can
weird.
see. Yeah. But in like a little collector's album that I would imagine these were sold at regular bookstores, which is kind of fun. And
Cool.
they feature some of the highlight issues. And the cool thing, reason I bought it was that it was obviously trying to appeal to normies. And the quote on the back is, "The campus craze that's sweeping the nation. Cool heroes, cool villains, cool plots, cool adventures. Comic book reading is in." And then the California Pelican newspaper calls Marvel the Playboy of comicdom. And we even get a blurb from the Village Voice here that talks about, because that's a big element I talk about in, I think the ego inflation of Stan Lee was the kind of like hippie acid dropping, like postmodern culture taking up comics like on college campuses. And I think he sort of played along with that, acting like these were actually like, very intelligent, smart, like things, which, you know what, they are. I mean, they're great. I mean, they're a lot of fun, but especially those first few early issues, they're sort of very rudimentary. Even Kirby's art, I don't think, picks up really until we really get into the run. I don't think he was treating it very seriously at the beginning.
This is still very prototypical at that time. I mean, there was they don't even say Marvel Comics on those issues, if I recall.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't. They said the world's greatest comic magazine. Yeah.
In terms of adaptations, though, in other media, the animation side is still vastly superior to anything live action that we've had for Fantastic Four. So I referenced the 1967 Hanna-Barbera cartoon, which I think is still one of the best. They literally adapted those Silver Age Stan and Jack stories pretty much verbatim. I mean, they condensed them and leaned them down, but they're very, very good. And certainly fared better in terms of animation in the 60s for Marvel than many of the other characters. If you've ever seen any of the other Marvel stuff in the 60s, Spider-Man, it looks great compared to the other characters who were produced by, I think it's like a studio called like Grant Ray Lawrence or something like that, where they literally just had a Xerox copy of a comic panel and moved the mouth a little bit, and then the arm would go kind of like this. So
right.
As limited as Hanna-Barbera's animation practices were, it's still vastly superior to any other Marvel stuff coming out at that time.
And I've never actually seen those. Can you buy those on DVD? Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, the 60s?
Spider-Man was put out by Disney back, probably almost 20 years ago at this point. That box set's probably out of print. I have it, though. It's not my favorite cartoon. I think people overpraise it as kind of like nostalgic, maybe nostalgic boomers or whatever, but the Fantastic Four cartoon is great. It's not available on any kind of physical media. It is on the Internet Archive, though.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. Surprisingly, I had no idea.
I was just gonna say my favorite Marvel cartoon, I think pre-90s, has always been Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Oh, of course. Of course. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends is excellent.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So what about the Fantastic Four 90s cartoon?
Yeah, so totally mixed bag. The first season is garbage in the highest
form. Why is it so bad?
So it's completely tonally a mess. It's a mostly kind of campy, jokey. It's very kiddie, meaning like it's made for like infants in terms of like how complex the stories are. Yeah, it's very, very bad. Yeah, the first episode recounts the origin of the Fantastic Four as they are on a celebrity talk show hosted by Dick Clark. Fun stuff.
Really?
The kids would really like. But the second and the animation is also very poor. You should look up the theme song for the first season. It's very catchy. It's got lyrics. It's very hokey.
I'm going to insert it into
the second season. They revamped the entirety of the show, animation, story team, everything, even some of the voices, and it's exquisite. It's excellent, high quality, top notch 90s cartoon. With introducing many new content. It introduces the Inhumans, Black Panther, Ego the Living Planet. They're all there. There's crossovers with Ghost Rider and Thor. So everything that you would want is in that second season.
Fantastic Four was a big springboard in the comics for lots of great ideas. The Inhumans, I totally forgot about. Silver Surfer, Inhumans.
Yep.
And then also, I remember when you read the early Stan and Jack books, like every character that they were launching with a new comic always had the Fantastic Four sort of kick it off and give them the blessing of, Spider-Man had this in his issue 1. Yeah. Daredevil has it in issue 2. The Fantastic Four drops in for a little appearance. So
it's sad though
you
that
know.
they were not on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. It's probably one of the only major Marvel characters that didn't make it on.
Did they have Human Torch or anybody come on? Did just
no? So Human Torch was famously excluded from that show. That was the original intent, was to have Spider-Man, Human Torch, and Iceman. But
somebody bought it, right?
Somebody had the rights. It wasn't James Cameron. I don't think so. I think it was somebody
That's
else.
why the Fantastic Four 70s cartoon had to have Herbie and no
Herbie the
Human
robot,
Torch, right?
the newest member of the group, as they call him in the opening credits. Now it's together with Herbie the robot, the newest member of the group, which is the absolute worst cartoon. I've been rewatching it. I thought about maybe toying with it. That's the one you sent me, the famous Magneto meme.
Oh, that was so good.
Yeah, that's where that comes from.
That's so funny.
That's where that and I watched that episode again, and it is horrendous. It's like, I am Magneto. I do not wait for traffic. And it's like, look at these pathetic mortals as they sit in traffic. I will merely hover above them.
Based.
And he's like, the elevator's like, you can't use that elevator. That's the Fantastic Four's special service elevator. And he's like, I do not care to wait for an elevator. I am Magneto.
Sorry. That's funny.
The only thing good about that show, though, is the voice cast is pretty good. So it's Ted Cassidy does the Thing in that show. If he's Lurch from the Addams Family.
Sure.
You're sure? Okay. So he does that. It's not as good as the original Hanna-Barbera one, though, where Paul Frees, who I mentioned in our War of the Worlds talk, did the voice of the Thing. So there's really good voices in there.
Well, I was going to say, this has been an interesting kind of one-off episode we thought we'd throw in. We're still planning on doing Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
We're still planning on doing... we haven't told anybody about our fun William Shatner themed episode that we want to do.
Yeah. I think that will be a good one to do. We're going to do that after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to humor you, and I'm going to force myself to watch Bela Lugosi meets a Brooklyn gorilla.
Yeah, with our Lewis and Martin imposters in the movie.
Just horrific.
It was a tough watch.
Yeah, man. Might be the toughest watch of the whole gig here.
I did say that as a admirer of Bela Lugosi to the nth degree. That movie is a very, very tough watch.
Why does Trembling Colors say Tony Danza's The Thing? Is that something I missed?
I'm not familiar with that one. But we didn't talk about The Thing's most infamous animated incarnation, which is in the 70s. Okay. Hanna-Barbera made their own cartoon, The Thing, and it was paired with Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble for an hour.
Right.
Fred and Barney meet The Thing. It's a real cartoon. Yeah.
But they didn't actually meet, though. It was like
correct.
The Thing and like some kid, right?
Yes, so there was basically the way that Hanna-Barbera marketed a lot of shows in the 70s is they would package together two things for an hour, and so they'd call it, the Richie Rich Scooby-Doo show, for instance, and they never met. There was just two, a Richie Rich half hour and a Scooby-Doo half hour. So this was a Fred and Barney Flintstones half an hour, and then The Thing for a half an hour. But the Thing cartoon was completely divorced from anything related to the Fantastic Four. This was a teenager named Benji Grimm, who had a special ring that allowed him to turn into the Thing. And he would say, "Thing ring, do your thing." And he would transform into the Thing.
Oh, man.
These are online, too. So you can look these up online. Yeah. I used to watch these on Boomerang back in the day. And I would be like, what the hell is this?
What year is this?
This is probably like 77, I want to say. Something like that.
Oh, dude, just imagine how crushed you would be as an actual fan of Marvel Comics. And you're like, oh, a Thing cartoon? And then it was about a kid that turned into the Thing?
With a catchphrase. And he went around in like a dune buggy or something like that.
Oh,
they're really bad.
Gosh.
They're really, really bad, even by Hanna-Barbera late 70s standards, in my opinion. As an admirer and a devotee, I can say that.
And he never even met Fred and Barney.
Only in the like interstitial segments where like they would have like a title card or something and they would come out together. Yeah.
Hey, Thing. Oh, how you doing, Thing? Right? I mean, is that what they
Yeah.
would do?
Yeah. I mean, they should have had them meet up for real. It would have been much, much more interesting.
You know, I used to read about these cartoons existing back when I was a kid, and I was like, "Oh, I wish I could find those." This was, before the internet really took off, right?
Well,
And
Boomerang, I saw all of these on Boomerang back in the day.
did
I
you
mean, they would
really?
just
Because
show them repetitively all the time.
see, whenever I got to watch, I only got to watch Boomerang because I didn't have big cable dish as a kid, and I had to go to like my grandpa's house, and he had it,
Uh,
and so I would be like, channel 328 or whatever Boomerang was, and then I'd be like, let's go, and it would always be something like, fucking Wacky Races or Huckleberry Hound or some bullshit that I know that you
hey,
like.
whoa, whoa, whoa! Shut your
Yeah,
mouth
yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah,
Do not speak ill of Huckleberry Hound. Okay.
yeah. Okay, sorry. You know what I mean? It would be like Howdy Horse or whatever the hell.
Yeah,
And
it'd
I
be
would be
like
like,
a Wheelie and the Chomper Bunch or Perils of Penelope Pit Stop.
exactly. And I'd be like, no, Johnny Quest, come on, Super Friends. I want to
Well,
see
you had to wait
something.
for Sunday. Sunday was Boomer Action Day, where they would have all
Yeah.
action cartoons all day long, including like Johnny Quest marathons.
But then I
I
would
would
see
go. I
things like,
remember being like even in elementary school, I'd come home and they would have just marathons of one character for like the entire afternoon, and it would be like, okay, Monday is Huckleberry Hound, Tuesday is Yogi Bear, Wednesday is Augie Doggy Doggy Daddy, Thursday is whatever, and you just watch them nonstop. And I don't think I could do that anymore, but
have a great old time.
yeah, exactly.
And then I used to read though that there's like a Spider Woman cartoon, which I know you can
Oh
see, but
yeah,
I've never seen
also
it. And
terrible.
a
So
Hulk 82.
Spider Woman and the new Fantastic Four, which is the Herbie the Robot, were both made by the same company, which is I believe Patty Freelang Enterprises,
Okay.
and their output is just very, very poor in terms of
Okay.
animation quality, and the stories are just piss poor.
Okay. Well, that's too bad because I always
Yeah.
thought Spider Woman was like the hottest superhero.
Yeah,
Who's the
Spider
hottest?
Woman is a
Who's the
great
hottest?
character. Those
Yeah.
initial issues in her run are just spectacular. I mean, it's I believe
They're
it's
cool.
Carmine Infantino actually doing the artwork on some of those in the early issues, and it's just exquisite.
They are cool. They're different concepts. I have a few issues of early Spider Woman. I really enjoy them, and I always liked how they made her costume so different and her origin so different from Spider Man himself. Right?
Yeah,
She wasn't like a clone of Spider Man, which I thought was always kind of interesting. And she's just like
and that is an iconic outfit that deserves more credit than it gets. I mean, that is
agreed.
just an exquisite costume. Sorry, I'm using that word so much, but it is breathtaking. And her inclusion in the new Avengers was really a shot in the arm to that character. And it's sad that she didn't take off more in terms of popularity after that.
Right.
And
And
then,
we've talked about that. We love New Avengers.
oh yeah, New
We're
Avengers.
fans.
Bendis, that was Bendis at his prime.
So
I mean,
cool.
there's no comparison to that era in modern comics. I don't think we'll ever get something like that again.
They were fun, but they still felt consequential.
Yeah.
They treated the characters right, but they came up with new, fun, interesting stories. It was a great team lineup and terrific art from
David Finch.
Yeah, Finch. Yeah. And I don't know. That was just great. I mean, I used to have the 2 trades of the first 2 volumes of that, and I just passed them around to all my friends, and we all really liked them. Yeah, those were
especially just because we've probably mentioned this before. It's just Avengers sucked before that.
Yeah,
It was
right.
terrible. It was just
It was always. Yeah, I would
the
pick up
worst characters. No one cared. Like Jack of
Yeah,
Hearts. Okay,
right.
cool, man.
I don't get why they did that because you'd even pick up Avengers comics from like the late 70s or early 80s, and I never liked the Avengers. I was just like, this is never.
And
really
I know
working for me.
hardcore Marvel nerds will be like, well, Wonder Man's cool, and I'm like, okay, maybe, but like, I just don't. Never really could get into him. These
Wonder
characters.
Man is cool. I liked his little like safari vest and like his like black turtleneck and shit. I thought he looked cool.
See, to me, and you'll disagree. I'm sure you'll disagree with this, but I would rather take the Z-list DC characters that were on like Justice League Detroit. I think those are more interesting to me than like these D-list Marvel characters that were on the Avengers in the 80s, 80s and 90s.
Throw out anybody
in Vibe and Martian Manhunter and Vixen, and I'll take those characters over these guys.
So I look like a pathetic loser on the show because Ryan knows so much more shit about comics than me. So when we talk comics, I just look like an absolute idiot. But like at a certain point in time, I did know, like, to the average guy, I know some shit. But like let's just do a little challenge here. Name all the characters on Avengers Detroit or Justice League Detroit. Let me see if I can name any of these people. Who are they?
You want me to do it?
Yeah, who's on Justice League Detroit?
Justice League Detroit. Yeah, that was like in the late 80s. It was Aquaman was, I believe, the team leader.
Okay. All
Martian Manhunter.
All right.
I think Vixen, Gypsy, Vibe, Elongated Man.
Heard of him.
And maybe somebody else. I could be wrong. We'd have to here. Okay. Should we confirm?
Okay, so they had Aquaman go to Detroit. What the hell is he going to do in Detroit? Hang out in the Great Lake?
I don't know. They called it. It was like the Detroit era. Let me see. Members.
Justice League Detroit.
Oh, Batman was still on. I can't remember. Yeah. So Aquaman, Batman, Elongated Man, Gypsy, Martian Manhunter, Steel. Forgot him. Sorry. Vibe, Vixen, and Zatanna. So I got most of them.
Oh, did Justice League like move to Detroit? Is that like?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Interesting time in comics.
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone has any idea what we're talking about. Or
did they get offered like a tax write-off or something to like relocate, or what the hell? Not the Detroit.
I can't recall. I can't recall, to be honest with you. I have to go back and read the first issue of that again.
Yeah, maybe you should. Maybe you should do that before you go off half-cocked on this show.
1,000 pardons.
You need to get back on that train.
You're just calling me out here, as a fake nerd. I'm not a real fan. I'm not a real fan.
You're not a real fan, because if you were a real fan, you would know that Ironheart is in the comics. Did you not know that?
Yeah, canon. It's the canon, so it immediately validates everything if you're canon.
Some girl from Sarah Lawrence wrote the story, and it was published by Marvel. You don't care about the comics, bro.
You just don't care about what the creators and the legacy of Marvel.
You don't. Well, that's all I have to say about Fantastic Four. I always assumed we'd keep this a little bit short. That was fun talking comics with you.
That was good. There's not a whole lot to say about the movie. I think, not to reiterate the same point over, but I think if you could examine the details of the movie visually, I'm sure there's a lot of gold under there that you could talk about, like how they came up, the set and these costumes and all that, but can't see it.
Got to bring it back, guys. We got to somehow get it. Like, I'm on a quest right now to try to get with my next video review, which will be on Steven Spielberg's Duel. I'm trying to get a movement going for Universal to release Steven Spielberg's wall-sized illustrated map script of the movie, which until now has only been seen in like still snippets that like are pan and scan across the screen in Laurent Bozereau's documentary on the DVD. But we need to see the entire thing, guys. I mean, come on. What the fuck are we doing here? We need to see that. So that's my newest
Duel is a great movie.
It's been a long time coming, with my review, just because I hope that I can do it justice. But that's my next video. And then after that, I think I'm either going to do Michael Mann's The Keep or John Borman's Excalibur, which I've been working on for a long time. So that's how it's going to go, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and subscribe to Ryan's channel, Cinecrisis. And then what I really need you guys to do, I mean, I just can't believe I have to keep asking. This is getting pathetic. Go on iTunes and Spotify right now, all 8 of you, and give us a 5-star deal. Write a review about how cool we are, so hopefully people hear the pod. Also, when you listen to the audio podcast, generally I go through the audio. I cut out a lot of little mistakes or like boring parts. I add in clips from the movies and music so that you have a completely amazing oral experience, sonal experience, whatever you say, right? I'm only going to ask this last time.
I wholeheartedly endorse this product.
This view. Okay. Do you endorse my shellacking of the audience? Do you endorse my shaming of the fans?
You have to do it much more animated, though. You'd be like, hey, guys, you got to like, subscribe.
Guys, you got to like and subscribe.
Follow me on Patreon.
You got to hit the buzzer so you know.
Yeah.
No, we have the best. You know what? I said we have the best fans. I will say this. We have the best friends in the game because all these people are near and dear to our heart. Like I said in my last video, it's very important for me, and I think you, to have a very strong, unhealthy sort of what is the word for this relationship that's a one-sided sort of media thing. Do you know what I'm talking about? What do they call that? I said it in my last review. I guess I forgot.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I can't think of the word. Sorry.
Yeah, but no, parasocial. But no, we love you guys. It's always fun to do these when we have interaction in the chat. It's always fun. So, thanks, Trembling Colors, for coming in on that one. Appreciate it.
Yeah, luckily our Hitchcock video did better than the previous few live streams.
Yeah,
so hopefully we'll keep the momentum going.
I might put out a poll.
I think the key is kind of that that era or that
sure, I know what you're saying.
of
That kind of that style genre. I am open though. I'm more than open to on this show though, because I want us to be interactive. I'm more open to if people have ideas about a show, follow us on Twitter. You could tweet at us. Me and Ryan, follow us on Twitter.
Yeah.
Follow us on Letterboxd. Just tweet at us. You want us to do something? You have a good idea for the show? We're more than open to it. We have lots of ideas banked up, but we'll do, whatever you guys want to say. So what about what Bronze Age comic is Alfred Hitchcock's Bronze Age work? Oh shit.
Wait, I don't understand.
Like what Bronze Age comic would you most equate to Alfred Hitchcock's Bronze Age work? This is a question from Trembling Colors. Werewolf by Night. How about that?
Interesting. I don't know.
Tomb of Dracula.
Sure.
Is that too obvious? It's a broad question. Though it seems like a very narrow question. It's actually kind of broad. Good question though. But did you like our comparison of the Bronze, Silver, and Gold Age Hitchcock? I think that was pretty apt. I think that was pretty good.
Okay. Well, I do need to get going. So
me too. Been real, guys.
It's been real. Till next time.
See you, Ryan.